Well, I've been asked to do a quick video for members of the public on practical ideas to protect yourself from coronavirus. So this is the new coronavirus here that's spreading from China or may well spread from China. So let's be prepared for this with a few quick practical tips of how to protect yourself and protect your family. Well, this is an infectious disease. So my first piece of advice is, if there is an infection and there's a lot of cases around, is to stay at home as much as possible and avoid busy places. So particularly aeroplanes, you get an awful lot of infections from aeroplanes because the air's recycled. But other busy public places like buses and trains and generally busy areas, it's going to be best if we can avoid those, so we don't reduce the likelihood of infection from other members of the public who might be infected. Now, this is particularly important with this virus because early data is showing that people can get the infection and then for perhaps 10 to 14 days they can be infectious before they get ill. So it may well be that people are infectious for quite a long period of time and could be spreading the virus. So even if people don't appear ill, they could still be spreading the virus if the virus is around in the community, if there's a lot of coronavirus around. And this might mean being antisocial or asocial, at least for a while. So we wouldn't want to encourage visitors. And again, remember, visitors might say, oh, I'll come round for a cup of tea. I'm feeling absolutely fine. I haven't got the virus. But they could be incubating the virus. And they might not be sick today, but in 7 days' time, they might be sick. But in all that time, they might be spreading the virus. So for a period of time, if there is a lot of cases, hopefully there won't be, but if there is, then restrict visitors and avoid close contact with symptomatic people or potential carriers. So people that are infected could be carriers, not yet suffering from the disease, still incubating the disease, but still feeling okay, still going to work, still living life as normal. And don't share cups and utensils with people either. If you have to go out in public, and of course people have to go out to work, then you could consider using a good quality medical mask. That will give you a degree of protection. Now, this virus gets in through the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the mucous membranes, potentially even the genital mucous membranes, potentially. But mostly the eyes, the nose and the mouth. So given that it can get in through the eyes, then it's a good idea to wear wraparound glasses if we're in an area where people are coughing and breathing and potentially spluttering over us. That will also give some more protection from the condition. Now, another thing about this virus is when people cough and sneeze, then they're coughing and sneezing the virus out. And what this will mean is the virus will settle on surfaces. So the virus will just settle on the surface there, and you'll end up with lots of viruses on the surface like that, on the surface of your table or on handles or in public places, in shop counters, anywhere like that. And then it can probably survive there for quite a few days, maybe up to 5 days. Then you come along and you get it on your hands. Now, it won't go through the skin in your hands. It's got to go through the mucous membranes. But are you always doing that? Or this? You know, very often without realising it, we're putting our hands to our mouth, to our nose, to our eyes, and that will spread the virus from a surface where someone has coughed or sneezed it onto or breathed it onto our hands, into our mouths or noses or mucous membranes, or indeed the mucous membranes of our family members, of our children, for example. So that's another point about this. And that's why this becomes so important that potentially when you're outside you could wear gloves and take them off when you come into the house. But we need meticulous hand hygiene. So we need to wash our hands very thoroughly. So wash them the front way, on the front like that, and on the back, back to back. And wash our thumbs like this. And wash fingers to fingers like this. And palm to palm like this. and that way we're likely to get any viruses off our hands with thorough washing with soap and hot water. So thorough hand hygiene is very important, and avoid my habit of doing this kind of thing, because if you're anything like me, you do it without realising you're doing it. Right, hot soap and water is the answer. Hand sanitizers probably give some benefit, but the alcohol probably has to be in contact with the virus for quite a long period of time in order to kill it. So don't trust a quick wipe over with a hand sanitizer. Probably not going to do the job. Gloves or meticulous hand hygiene with hot soapy water is the answer. Now, whenever I ring up the hospital, they always say don't come and visit us because you've probably got an infection. Even now, because it's winter time and it's seasonal flu time, so avoid hospitals, limit visiting if you can. If you work in hospitals, of course, it's different. Now, whether you get an infection or not depends on whether you're exposed to the virus, how virulent the virus is, and how good your immune system is. So anything you can do to boost your immune system is going to be a good thing. Now, if you take extra vitamins and protein tablets and mineral tablets, whatever, that's not going to boost your immune system unless you were deficient in one of those dietary components. So as long as you're fairly well nourished, and think about your nutrition, think about your fruit and vegetables, think about the flavonoids you're getting, think about the vitamin C that you're getting. Because if you're deficient in these things, that can reduce the efficiency of the immune system. Protein deficiency can reduce the efficiency of the immune system. So we're thinking about all of these things. And this virus started in China, where of course it's winter now, and I live in the north of England, where it's grey and cloudy for much of the time. And this means that a lot of us who live in the far north, like Scandinavian countries, if you live in Chicago, if you live in Canada, Northern American states, if you live in Seattle, if you live in Glasgow or Edinburgh or where I live in Carlisle in the north of England, you're not getting a lot of sunshine. And nearly all of the vitamin D we get comes from sunshine. We don't get much vitamin D from our diet. You get some from the diet, but a lot of it comes from sunshine. And the darker the colour your skin, the more slowly you will make vitamin D when you're exposed to the sun. So black people, Asian people often have lower levels of vitamin D than their white friends and neighbours because the dark skin protects you against the sunlight, which is good. It stops you getting sunburnt in summer, but it means you don't make as much vitamin D. So at the moment in Carlisle, I'm actually taking some extra vitamin D. This one happens to be from Asda. Other good outlets are available. We're going to focus up there. And at the moment I take 25 micrograms of vitamin D every day, which is a reasonable adult dose, just over winter. In summer I don't, but it's probably a good idea for winter time because vitamin D is involved in immunity. We do know that vitamin D is involved in immunity. Again, taking a lot of vitamin D is not going to help, but if you're deficient in vitamin D, that can potentially reduce the efficiency of your immune system. We don't have evidence that taking multivitamins is beneficial. The vitamin D is the one that people are likely to be short of if we live in the north. Now, generally we want to keep warm because you know that colds and flu and spread in colder weather. Part of the problem is that in the cold, the viruses can live for longer and there's less humidity, so the viruses kind of float in the air for longer and we can breathe them in. And as well as that, in winter, you get a cold runny nose and that reduces the blood supply to your nose, and that means less immune cells are going to your nose. So if you're cold, you're more likely to get infection, especially if you've got a cold nose. Having said that, when we go out on a cold day, we normally wrap up and our body temperature is able to maintain normally. But keep warm and keep your nose warm if you can, and that will also help your personal immune system, what we call the innate immune system. Now, if the virus does come to your country, and we're hoping it's not, but we want to be prepared, then it could potentially get into animals. So in that case, thoroughly cook meat and eggs. At the moment in England, that's not a problem, but it could potentially become in future if the virus gets into meat and eggs and poultry. And then we want to avoid giving the disease to other people. So don't go around blowing your nose like that. You want a tissue, blow into the tissue. So that's called catch it. Then put it in the bin, and then it will die over the next few days. So catch it, bin it, kill it, stop it spreading around. And remember, coughs and sneezes spread diseases. So if you're sneezing a couple of meters away from someone, the droplets from your breath will go over to them, because this is a droplet infection. The virus can just hang in the air in these water droplets. That's how it's going to be spread. So coughs and sneezes spread diseases. And avoid public spaces if you start to feel ill with a fever. But remember, if you've been exposed to the virus, you might be feeling fine for up to 2 weeks, 10 to 14 days we currently think, before you start to feel ill, and in that time it can spread to a lot of people. Now, we're not sure about this, but the original data coming out of China does seem to be indicating that this has a long incubation period, which is going to perhaps in fact be the main reason why this might spread. So the condition has already spread to quite a few countries. Cambodia as well, I heard in the news this morning. And these suggestions that I've done here, the 1 to 13, will also help protect you against seasonal flu, colds and influenza. And these 13 points in these notes I will post in the notes below this video. Look after yourselves, look after your family, do stay well.